Hey folks, Dave here, full in-depth review of the new Apple Watch SE, the second generation model, the 2022 model. It's the one right here on my wrist. I've been putting it through its paces, comparing it against the Apple Watch Series 8 on the other wrist over the last little while, running, cycling, swimming, all the things, testing it out and seeing how well it performs. Now I've got my full Apple Watch Series 8 video up in the corner there, but let's first just run through some of the differences between the SE and the Series 8 before we get into all the details of the SE itself. Also note that this unit is technically a midnight black unit, but I swapped out my red bands because I just couldn't wear two identical midnight black watches at the same time. It was confusing the heck out of me. First off, the price. The SE is $249 US versus the Series 8 starts at $399 or $499 for cellular. When it comes to functionality, the biggest thing is the always-on display on the Series 8 versus the SE only shows a display when you lift up your wrist like this. The display turns on, you put it back down again, the display turns off to save battery. Now beyond that, there's really like 6 other core differences. Number 1, there's no ECG capability on the SE. Number 2, there's no blood oxygenation level or SpO2 readings on the SE. Number 3, the Series 8 display is bigger in terms of like size comparisons between the smaller size and the smaller size on both editions. Number 4, the SE doesn't have fast charging, but rather just regular charging, so it'll take a little bit longer to charge your battery. I don't think that's that big of a deal. And number 5, it doesn't have Apple's U1 ultra wideband chip. Again, it's something I don't think is that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. It does, however, get the new vehicular crash detection that came out on the Series 8, the Ultra, as well as the SE, so that is in there. It doesn't have the new wrist-based temperature sensing capabilities that are introduced on the Series 8 and the Ultra that can help with fertility and ovulation cycle management. That's not there either. But the main thing though that it gets is all of the WatchOS 9 features of the Series 8, and that is a vast amount of things, especially in the sports and fitness landscape. So for example, WatchOS 9 introduced Triathlon or Multisport mode. It introduced heart rate zones and the ability to show those heart rate zones while you're working out. It introduced running power, running efficiency metrics, and structure workouts, and editing the structure workouts, and all these things that were added that make it a far more sports capable watch, likely for the Ultra edition that Apple, announced, but they roll down to the SE and the Apple Watch Series 8 as well. And hey, a quick note, it is super crazy hot out right now. So if you're finding this video interesting or useful, just give it a like at the bottom there. It really does help with this video and the channel, and maybe I'll get a cold drink after this. Now starting off, we got the basic activity tracking. And this is exemplified or displayed on Apple Watches using 3 rings. You've probably heard about the rings out there. Essentially these 3 colored rings that track your standing, your exercise, and your moving. And moving is kind of like a proxy for steps in this case. And your goal each day is to close those rings, to like complete a loop around them. You can do multiple loops if you want to. In some cases, it's probably not so good, like standing, because the goal is to stand 12 hours a day. If you stood 24 hours a day, it's probably not super awesome. But anyways, you keep the rings moving. You can see the rings on the watch as well as on the app later on, and you can see how they compare historically. You can even go ahead and compete against your friends if you add them in the app here as well. I can say there's definitely some truth to like the cult aspect of trying to close those rings every single day or throughout the day even. You'll get prompts as you go throughout your day, basically reminding you to keep on doing certain things. And especially towards the end of the day, you'll be like, hey, it's only just a few more minutes to close this ring. And you're like, I'm doing it right now. In my underwear, outside, we're making this happen. Now, assuming you do stop chasing rings, you'll head back inside and go to sleep. You can see I didn't sleep very much last night, but I did get my sleep stages or phases shown on the watch there. That is also synced to the app. These times there are relatively correct. That 7:55-ish or so that says I woke up, that's when the alarm went off. That's actually not when I woke up. I kept hitting the snooze button for another 40 minutes or so, and it didn't seem to detect that. Maybe it just wasn't good enough quality sleep. So that'd be like a minor nitpick versus my Garmin watch did actually detect that properly. The Whoop band that I was wearing on my bicep here did correctly detect my sleep times in the exact 8:40 or so that I got out of bed. Generally speaking though, Apple's done a pretty good job of judging the times that I fell asleep and the times that I woke up. I don't go ahead and judge the accuracy of the sleep phase or stage detection, mainly because the tools to do that, the ways that you can go and measure that, aren't all that accurate by itself. They're only about 80% accurate, and to me it's not really accurate enough to then make accuracy claims on something else. Now with my sleep taken care of, it was off to the pool to do some swimming, but I won't try to show you a pool workout. Instead, I'm going to show you just a simple run because this is a better way of exemplifying all these new features. To go ahead and access the workout page, you're going to tap the little runner icon, that's the yellow one on your apps list. That opens up the workout page, and then from there you can go and choose whichever workout type you want. There is a boatload of workout types. You can see as I'm scrolling through these, there's tons and tons and tons to choose from. And the point of all these different workout types is to have customizations of the data fields as well as the calorie burn for those workout types. Once you choose a given one, in this case we'll choose running, you tap the little dot 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 there, and that goes and opens up a menu to specify the goal for that particular workout. So it can be a time-based goal or distance-based goal or open, meaning I'm just going to run on forever until I'm done on running or whatever the case is. Or one of the new features is the custom workouts down at the bottom. So you can create a custom workout, you can save a custom workout. I can create like 8x800s on the track and do whatever I want to do there, and have those workouts notify me as I'm going through the workouts. You can create a warm-up and a cool down. You can create the work interval, the recovery interval based on time or distance or open. There's tons of options here. I've had no problems creating the workouts that I want. The only downside is you have to do it on the watch itself, which is really cumbersome, especially like typing the names and stuff. It takes forever, and there's no way to do that today on the phone. Even worse than that is iOS 16 and Apple Watch OS 9 got rid of the ability to configure data pages and data fields for your workouts on your phone. It used to be there in iOS 15, and now it's gone, and I haven't got a good answer on when that'll be back on the watch and on the phone. Hopefully at some point in the near future, because it's really painful to do all that stuff, especially the workout creation from this tiny little display. Anyways, whether or not you have a workout or not created, you'll go ahead and just start your actual run or any sort of activity that you're doing, and you're going to see the data pages that you've configured. You can swipe through them or use the digital crown there to rotate through them. I haven't had any problems with like water or sweat or anything like that on the display. Sure, every once in a while it misses a swipe or a touch, but overall it's a lot better than some of their competitors in terms of a wet display and being usable. Now, if you're in a custom or structured workout, you will go ahead and see how much time or distance is remaining for that particular step. In the upper left hand corner, it'll basically show you whether you're in a recovery or a work interval or the warm up or the cool down, and you can double tap that to skip to the next step if you want to. You'll also see running power. If running, this is something that Apple has added, requires no extra sensors at all. You just run, but you do have to run. It doesn't work for walking, which is kind of a weird quirk. And I know some of you are like, oh, it's called running power. But if you're in the ultra community and doing, ultra races or trail races, a lot of times it's just more efficient and practical to walk very fast up a hill. And from an exertion standpoint and from a power standpoint, that is still power and exertion output. And so that should be accounted for like every other running power sensor on the market today. And hopefully it's something we'll see change down the road. You'll also see heart rate zones, and all these things can be configured within the sport profiles. And it gets actually surprisingly detailed, but you can have them per sport profile, even for different custom workouts and all that kind of stuff. Can have all different settings for those data displays and data pages. Now, as I mentioned before, there is a new Multisport or Triathlon mode. This is a fantastic deal. For $250, there are very few watches in the market in the endurance sports world that do Multisport. There are no Garmin watches, no new Garmin watches anyways, that do it at that price point. You basically have to spend $400 to get to a Multisport watch on the Garmin level, so $250 is astounding. I tried it out this past summer on WatchOS 9 on the previous Apple Watch Series 7 edition in a triathlon using the exact same software, and it worked great. It had automatic transitions enabled, but you can enable manual transitions if you want to, and it basically just transitioned from sport to sport to sport as I went along, and it was really close on all those sports and all those transitions. Note though that sensor pairing is super limited on the Apple Watch, at least natively. You can go ahead and pair a Bluetooth heart rate strap using the watch itself in the sensors menu, but you can't pair any cycling cadence sensors or power meters, any of the stuff that you would expect for triathlons. And Apple highlighted iron distance triathlons in their keynote, mainly for the Ultra Edition, but the concept applies here because it's the same software. And in this case, all of those athletes, not all of them, but the vast majority of iron distance athletes are using a power meter, and even people doing a half Ironman, which this watch is totally capable of, are also often going to be using a power meter. So I'm hoping we'll see Apple expand their sports sensor types in due time. Note that there are third-party apps that can pair to power meters and cadence sensors and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not aware of any that can do that in a triathlon mode. And so it's kind of like this pickle. You got to choose between doing the cycling side or doing a triathlon, and there's just not one cohesive solution like there is in other watches out there. Now, after your workout, you're going to see all this data in the Apple Fitness app. That's basically Apple's kind of app for looking at all your sports stuff. Behind the scenes, though, it's actually pumping into the Apple Health app. And the Apple Health app is where you can see all of your data from all sorts of devices, not just Apple devices. So if you had a Whoop band or a Garmin or Polar or whatever you want out there, that's pumping that data into the Apple Health app. And maybe not just, activity data and workout data and sleep data, but it could be other sensor types as well. In any case, the Fitness app within iOS 16 in conjunction with the WatchOS 9 has made great strides compared to what it used to be. It's like they actually care about sports now. Still, it's not as detailed as like dedicated sports platforms like a Strava or Training Peaks or whatever the case may be. So in my case, I go ahead and use another third-party app called HealthFit, which basically just pipes up the data from there to those apps. You can do it natively via the Strava app and stuff like that, but I find I get better data accuracy and better data depth by using HealthFit than I do using some of those native integrations. There's other third-party apps as well, like RunGap, that do roughly the same thing. So before we get into the accuracy section, let's talk about the compass and the Backtrack functionality. That is something that is available on the SE. In fact, it's showing right now on my watch there. So when you crack open the compass app, you'll see the actual compass itself. Down at the bottom though, you'll see a couple of different options. The left-hand side is where you can create a waypoint. So you can tap on that and then save your exact GPS coordinate. You can give it a name, you can go give it a color, you can give it an icon. And then once you save that, it'll show up on the map right there in the middle. Or you can tap in the upper left-hand side and you can see a list of all those saved waypoints, and then you get actual directions to them using that magnetic compass. So it'll say, you know, it's this general direction and it's X number of feet or meters or whatever distance it is to that point. It's just as the crow flies though, it's very, very straight. Now in the bottom right-hand corner is the Backtrack functionality. The way Backtrack works though is that it does not automatically start when you start a workout. I wish it did, it should by the way, but it doesn't. Instead what it's looking for is a reduction in Wi-Fi signals, like the density of the signals, not just your Wi-Fi hotspot, as well as the reduction or elimination of cellular signals. So the idea being that if I go like far enough off into these mountains here and all those things start disappearing, it's gonna think, you know what, maybe you're about to get yourself in trouble. And that's probably true, but it's actually trying to outsmart you so that when you get lost, it's already working behind the scenes. Still, you can tap it manually and start it, and when you do that, it'll start tracking. In any case, you'll see your other waypoints on there, as well as your starting waypoint, and you have the option to retrace your steps back to your starting waypoint. Now keep in mind, this is very, very rudimentary in the grand scheme of things. It's just connecting dots that are placed every 2 minutes or so. Now before I talk about some of my final recommendations, let's look at the accuracy of the heart rate and the GPS. So starting off with a steady state run right here, no problems. It's spot on with the chest strap as well as the other optical heart rate sensors. Adding some little intervals towards the end there, again, it's exactly where I want it to be. Adding some longer intervals with higher intensity, again, spot on. Going to an indoor cycling workout with a whole slate of messiness on the interval side, both at the beginning as well as at the end. And it just nails this across the board. No surprise, this is the same as the Series 8 and the Ultra. So instead, let's look at the GPS side of it. In the easier run here in the forest, and the only mistake made by any watch at all was actually Series 8 for like a couple hundred meters, and that's it. So then the fun test is on this coastal road here, a perfect out and back stretch. These are kind of fun because, well, in theory, it looks easy. If any errors at all, they're super obvious to spot. But as you can see, there's no errors by either the SE or the Series 8 or the 955. So now we get into some of the complexity. This is a test that includes both some straightaway, some easy areas, but also some really, really difficult downtown city areas. Starting off with the straightaways, spot on there. Everyone stays on the path and no one's in the canal or the water. And if we look at the churn that I did right here, it doesn't cut the corner. The Coros Vertex 2 cut that corner. Now we get into like the city section. And just for context, this is not an easy city section. These are buildings that go up to about 20 to 30 stories tall on both sides. And I'm in this tiny narrow street and I go back and forth up and down this stretch of the city, as you can see right here. So if we look at this first building section, it's virtually identical to the Apple Watch Ultra. A slightly offset from the route, but not too bad. On this next section here, in the upper portion of the road, the Apple Watch SE completely loses a plot. The Ultra maintains it. However, the lower section, it actually holds onto the road, no problems at all. So what about something like New York City? In this case, I took it there and I compared it against a $2,000 Garmin watch with multiband GPS, a Polar $300 watch with multiband GPS, and a Coros Apex 2 Pro multiband GPS watch that's $500, and it pretty much equaled or beat all of them. It definitely beat the Polar easily, as you can see in every possible scenario here. It was about the same as the Coros and maybe a little bit behind the Garmin watch, but still for $250, it's very, very solid, and the same is true for the heart rate as well. Okay, so a couple final things to kind of keep in mind here. Number one is the battery life. The battery life is certainly less than other watches on there that are dedicated to sports. You know, Apple has this kind of standard claim of 18-hour all-day claim. I find I basically charge it once per day, and that's what most people find for most Apple Watches. You can squeak out like a day and a half or so, and I've done that here as well, but I'd say like I'm basically charging it every single day. And then of course there's the reality that it does require an iPhone. It's not even compatible with an iPad. It uses an iPhone because an iPhone uses Apple Health, and Apple Health isn't on the iPad, but you get the point. You probably already knew that by now. Still, for $250, it is a fantastic value, especially if you want some of those additional running metrics like running power, or you want a triathlon mode like it's offered here. Those are things that aren't offered on Garmin's until you get up to that $400 price point, again, for at least a new watch anyways. Of course, it's missing some of the more advanced running features like Pace Pro and those kind of things that you'll find on some of these similarly priced Garmin watches at the $250 to $300 level. So you got to kind of like do this whole big comparison matrix, and maybe that's something for a future video. Still, if you want a great smartwatch that's a reasonably solid sports watch, especially now with WatchOS 9, it's reasonably hard to beat the Apple Watch SE at $249. With that, hope you found this interesting or useful. If so, go ahead and whack that like button down the bottom there, or hit subscribe for more sports technology goodness. Have a good one.